The true scary story that I'm about to tell you today, the girl needs help, okay? She's experiencing some crazy stuff and it's absolutely terrifying her. Also, if you want to send me your true scary story and you want me to recount it on here, my email is in my bio. It's kaisespooky@gmail.com. Okay, let's get started. We're gonna call today's submitter Sylvia because she didn't tell me if we could use her real name or not, so I'm just gonna call her Sylvia. Now, Sylvia moved into this house 3 years ago and everything was fine until one day her parents went out and left her home alone, which was completely fine. But a couple hours passed when she hears the door open and then she hears it close and then she hears her mother say, "Hi, we're home." So Sylvia's like, "Hi, how are you?" No answer. So she goes downstairs. She looks all around. No one is home. No one came home. Her parents are not home. But one day, they're all sitting around the table, right? And they're eating dinner. And she tells everybody that she has to get up and go upstairs and get something out of her room. So she goes upstairs, she comes back down, and everybody's like, "Well, tell us." She's looking at them confused, like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And her dad is like, "You just walked downstairs and said, 'Hey, we're moving. I found a house.'" So they literally saw her walk downstairs and talk to them. It was not her. So they're all kind of freaked out because they're like, "What the hell?" And she thought this was going to be the end of it. That was not the end of it. Same night, she's in her bed and she's sleeping when she's awoken by footsteps. Now she hears the footsteps coming up the stairs. Then she hears them coming into her room and she feels something get into her bed, pull her covers up, and literally like they were like getting inside of her bed to sleep next to her. So she like jolts awake. She's like, "What the hell?" She turns on the light. She looks around. There is nothing there. So the next morning she tells her mom what happened and her mom's face goes pale and she's like, "I heard somebody walking up the stairs too. I thought that it was you." Now, this is important to note. Her room is the only room that is upstairs near the attic. Now, this is where it starts to get bad. That night, she's in her room and she's sleeping. When she wakes up to hearing footsteps coming up her stairs again, and she hears keys jingling. So this time, she thinks somebody broke into her house. She is frozen with fear. She literally can't move. She put the covers over her head and she's just laying there frozen in fear. And all of a sudden, she hears the door open. Everything is going in slow motion. She hears the footsteps get closer and closer to her bed. Just do, do, do. And she hears, Now, this is in a different language. She cannot hear it, but whatever is doing, it's growling. It's growling like this demonic growl, and it's right in her ear speaking a different language. She said this was the most terrifying voice she had ever heard. And all of a sudden, it just walks away, it shuts the door, and she can hear it walk down the stairs, and she just sits there frozen in fear for hours, cannot sleep. Now, everything is fine for a couple months until a couple months later, she's sleeping in her bed, and she's woken again by those footsteps. Two, two, two. She hears the keys jingling again. She just shuts her eyes as tight as she can and she's pretending to sleep, and she hears the footsteps getting closer and closer to her door until they stop in front of her door and they start walking back and forth outside of her door, and this thing is like whispering in this demonic voice in a different language again. At this point, this thing is driving her mentally crazy. She starts to get sick. People around her start to get sick. Someone even has a stroke in her house. Everything goes normal again for a little bit, and then one night again she's in her bed, except for this time it's a little different. She's in her bed and she hears these footsteps coming again. Do, do, do. But then she hears a different voice get right in her ear. It says word for word,
"He's coming. You need to fight."
She quickly jumps up. She turns on her light. She looks around. There's absolutely nothing in her room. At this point, she's like, "I'm going to wear an evil eye necklace. I need some sort of protection." So she puts the evil eye necklace on her. Now, this does protect her for a little bit. It makes her feel good until one night she's laying in her bed and she wakes up and the evil eye necklace is not on her. She can't find it anywhere. She lifts up her covers and she sees it at the bottom of her feet, still latched. Mind you, this thing can only come off of her head if it's latched. It's too small to be pulled over her head. So something had taken it off of her body and then relatched it and then put it by her feet. So now she's like, "Okay, I'm just gonna wear a cross necklace." Well, this gets worse. She puts on the cross necklace and one day she wakes up and the cross necklace is choking her. She's like, "Okay, if that's not gonna work, I'm gonna put a rosary in my room." So she puts a rosary in her room, and get this, it makes her violently ill. She's throwing up hot, cold sweats, like all the symptoms of a flu. She cannot have that rosary in her room. Her own animals don't come near her anymore. They will not come upstairs. They act weird towards her. One day, after this had happened so many times, she finally just decides that she's gonna yell something very stupid out, and she admits that this is really stupid of her, but she did it anyway, and she just says, "If you're gonna do this, at least speak to me in English." Biggest mistake, because a couple days go by and she's sleeping in her bed again and she hears the footsteps again. Do, do, do. Then she hears the same voice that she had heard earlier say,
"He's coming. Whatever you do, Keep your eyes shut.
At this point, she's trying to hold herself together, but honestly, it was something out of a horror movie. So she pretends to be asleep. The door opens. Something walks in her room. Doo, doo, doo. Then she hears something in English this time. It's speaking in a normal voice in English, and she can't even remember what it said. She was so terrified, she completely blanked out. And then she decides that she's gonna open her eyes. She opens her eyes, and there's this huge, massive, black, misty shadow just towering over her. She says that she hasn't experienced anything since this happened, but she knows that something is coming and it's coming soon. She can feel it. She's also been having terrible, vivid nightmares of people telling her that she's going to be unalived in her dream. She is absolutely terrified. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know what this is. Why is it making her sick when she puts the rosary in her room? That's really freaking her out. She wants to know your guys' opinion, and she wants to know how she can get rid of this thing because she's living in absolute terror. Any comments or suggestions would be greatly appreciated, you guys. My name is Kaisa, and I tell true scary stories that you guys submit to me on here every single night. So if you like that, hit that follow button. Keep sending me your spooky story, guys. I love you so much. You guys are the absolute best. Like, I love you. I'll say it every single time. I need you to do 2 things for me. What are those things? The first one is be safe, and the second is have a spooky night. Love you guys. See you in the next one.